Hi folks, this is all the fruit. I'm on the island of Tenerife in the Montes de Anaga in one of the best, maybe the best, laurel forests or laurisilva in the world. Here this is the road which goes along the ridge of the Anaga Mountains, the Carretera de Cumbre, and that's why here the laurel forest is very low. Also, of course, it has been degraded over many centuries, overused by the Spanish. But if you look a couple meters away from the road, the trees suddenly get a lot taller. Here they are like 6 meters tall. You go 10 meters down there, they're already 8 meters tall. You go 50 meters down there, they're maybe 12 to 15 meters. Well, most of the species of this laurisilva, it's called laurisilva or laurel forest because they are in the family Lauraceae. They are like laurel species and closely related species, like, for example, the avocado, Persea indica, the Indian avocado. They all have those kind of coriaceous leaves, and usually they have small blackish fruit. Well, look at that. Here I have such a tree. It looks like it fits right in, no? Wah! Evergreen coriaceous leaves and black fruit. Looks like a laurel species. Well, but if you look at the flowers, you realize, oh wow, this is not a laurel species. This is actually a rosaceae. This is a prunus or a cherry. What is a cherry doing in the laurel forest? And there is not only one. There are many of them. Actually, about a kilometer further that way, I saw gigantic laurel cherry trees. They were like 12, 15 meters tall and sometimes 30, 40 centimeters thick. And there were many of them, so this doesn't seem to be an exception. Here there are also many laurel cherry trees, but they are not taller than the rest of the forest. Oh, actually they are. They are kind of the tallest tree here in this low, wind-beaten forest on the ridge. And for some reason, while everywhere else they were not in season, here they are. They are totally fruiting. Up there, there's a beautiful inflorescence, which my phone is, of course, not gonna show to you properly because the zoom is horrible, but here it is. So I decided to make a fruit video here because, after all, it's a cherry. What can go wrong? So this is Prunus lusitanica subspecies hixa. We have basically two evergreen cherries in Europe. Prunus lauro cerasus in the east, in the Balkans and the Caucasus, in Turkey. And Prunus lusitanica in the west, basically in Portugal, Spain and Macaronesia. Well, Prunus lauro cerasus in the east has actually been used and is being used as a fruit tree. You can eat the wild cherries, and there are actually some cultivars. What about Prunus lusitanica in the west? I tried it once in Germany and it was the most bitter cherry I've ever tasted. Yep. Bitter. I mean, yeah, it's this cyanide bitterness, so typical for rosaceae species. Like in some it's just in the seed, like in some it's just in the seed, like in peaches or plums. In some, like in Prunus avium, the wild Prunus avium, it's also in the flesh. So this Portuguese laurel cherry, imagine a really bitter wild Prunus avium from the forest, and imagine it being a pretty dryish Prunus avium. It is juicy, but not as juicy as the average Prunus avium. Look at that, there is juice, but less juice than in Prunus avium, and it's bitter than it's more bitter than the most bitter Prunus avium. I would not call it fit for fresh consumption out of hand, yet those are actually the least bitter Prunus Laurel Cerasus I've ever tasted, but still too bitter. Also, the bitterness is not as nice as the bitterness of bitter almonds, so I wouldn't, yes, I would use it to spice some dishes, but I would use it if I had no bitter almonds. But speaking of bitter almonds, what's the bitter stuff of the bitter almonds you use? It's not the flesh of the fruit, it's the seed. And look at those seeds, they're pretty big. And actually there are seeds of Prunus species which are being eaten. Well, first of all, the almonds, Prunus dulcis, where you have the sweet almonds and the bitter almonds. Then the seeds of a lot of apricots. You can also remove the bitterness from the seeds of other species, but also in Prunus Laurel Cerasus, our other evergreen cherry, the seeds can be eaten if they are not too bitter. Well, I guess if the flesh is bitter, the seeds will be even more bitter, but okay. The hard shell around the seed was quite easy to crack, similar to Prunus Laurel Cerasus, but a lot easier than in Prunus avium. I think you can see that the shell is a lot thinner than in Prunus avium. And the bitterness inside, I already tasted it while I cracked the seed, is of a more delicate type than the bitterness of the flesh. It's more like bitter almond bitterness. Yeah. Oh yeah. Actually, that's interesting. The seed is less bitter than the flesh, a lot less bitter than the flesh. Usually, trees provide a tasty sweet flesh to birds, but with the bitter seed enclosed in a hard shell, so that the birds eat the flesh and not the seed. But here, the seed is a lot less bitter than the flesh, and also the seed has a wonderful, strong cyanide flavor, which is being used in the bitter almond to spice up a lot of stuff, a lot of drinks like the amaretto liquor, or a lot of or a lot of sweet dishes. Let's try this again. Horribly bitter flesh. Yeah. Even the last remnants which stick to the seed are horribly bitter. Cracking the seed, I think you heard it. Yeah. Less bitter, but with a really strong amaretto flavor. So not a strong bitterness, but a strong flavor. I would not recommend to you eating bitter rosaceae seeds. As I said, the bitterness comes from cyanide, and cyanide is deadly in overdoses. That's the reason that bitter almonds are usually sold only in packages of 5. And actually, when I bought 100 grams of bitter almonds once in Italy, the vendors made very sure that I know what this is, that I know that this is toxic, and that I'm only gonna use it for amaretto. So folks, don't eat random bitter rosaceae seeds. The rule basically is if the rosaceae seed is bitter, stay away from it. The bitterness is from cyanide. If the rosaceae seed is sweet, like in sweet almonds or sweet apricots, eat it. In this case, well, the seed might be less bitter than the flesh of the fruit, but still stay away from it. It still can kill you as an overdose. Even cherry seeds and apple seeds can kill you in an overdose. So folks, this was Prunus Laurel Cerasus, A cherry which basically, sorry, this was Prunus lusitanica, not Laurocerasus, Prunus lusitanica in the laurisilva. A cherry in the subtropical or temperate rainforest of the Canary Islands, which basically poses as a laurel tree. Stay tuned for a lot more fruit videos from the beautiful laurisilva of Tenerife. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.